done this. So what did you do this weekend? What was it?
57th Street.
57th Street. Old Town is this weekend coming up.
Yeah, that's the next one that I'm doing.
Yeah. How was 57th Street?
It was not bad, but not good. It was mediocre, to put it mildly. Last year was my best 57, but I wasn't expecting to match that. So, but it was not even my average for the year. It was below my average. But there was a lot of people in there, but there was nobody buying. It's kind of Saturday is kind of weird because you got the graduation for the University of Chicago. So there's a lot of people walking the show, but don't necessarily means that they're buying because they're there for the graduation. There he is.
Yeah.
And there was very few people carrying packages, but they sent a survey today, and I'd say to them that even the neighborhood is growing. They really need to start bringing people from outside the area because there was nobody there buying, and before it was really hard to get double spaces and 1.5 spaces. Now they can do that with no problems, and I think they're having a hard time filling up the show with artists. And I think that the only reason why they're getting good artists is because I would say 25% of the artists are doing Old Town, or they're on the way to Columbus.
Right.
And they needed something to fill up the gap. But it was not, like I said, it was no bad, but it could be a lot worse. And the one thing that I did like about the show, the opposite from the other shows, at least in my section, because it's always the same people in that street section where I am. Everybody's friendly to each other. Everybody was cheering each other to do well at the show. Nobody was like with a bad attitude or anything like that through the show. Everybody was hoping that everything worked out fine, and everybody was helping each other, and everybody was laughing and having a good time. So, but I know Ron was in the other section all by himself with Mark Hirsch next to him.
That's right.
Getting next to him.
Getting buried in cottonwood seeds, and they're like, "Oh my god!"
It looked like it was snowing and King Bar.
Yeah, but I'd say everything that Oscar said times two, because I agree with what he's saying. It's just for some reason they're losing their focus on bringing in art buyers with all the growth that he's talking about, and all the art buyers and all the art shows in the area. They're not bringing in buyers. It was sad. God, there were so many people that I saw there next to me and across the street and talking to people that couldn't sell, especially on Saturday, but also on Sunday, couldn't sell a piece off the wall. Not a single piece. One painter.
Which show?
57th Street, Chicago.
Okay.
And it's got a long history of being a pretty good show, but it sure wasn't this year.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
Last year it was a liar because it was the first time they have it since COVID. So,
but still, I think as a business, shows are supposed to sit back after each year's show and go like, okay, what worked, what didn't work, and all they would have to have done was go stand in the street, stand in the middle of the streets, and watch who was walking by, and if they were carrying any packages, which they weren't. And how can you not do that and then not conclude, if nobody's walking by with packages, that the show's working?
Did they hand out a survey? Did they do a survey?
Yeah, they sent it out today. It's in the email already. But the problem with that show, I think there's only one person through the whole year putting the show, and the rest are volunteers.
Which were great. The volunteers were great.
Yeah, the volunteers are great, but they only have one person doing the whole.
Seriously?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I think that's the problem. It used to be like a 4 or 5 of them, and now I
So
think
why
it's
do you
just
think
like,
why do you think that's happening?
I really don't know. And you know, I should volunteer with them and help them because I live in the freaking area. So
Yeah, but on years that you don't get in the show.
yeah, right. Which is not a good idea.
Well, they could sure use the help, and the nice thing is you do shows around the country, so you get to see how all these other shows deal with the same kinds of issues and different philosophies, different approaches, some that would work way better, way better than what they're currently doing.
Yeah.
But do you have time? I mean, would you realistically have time for that, Oscar?
Realistically, no, but
Right.
but I will make time for it if it means to make the show better, assuming that they want the help, you know.
Right. And assuming they're open to the improvement. So
Yeah.
It's interesting. Sometimes the show doesn't want any help and doesn't appreciate the fact that you have very valid suggestions.
Yeah.
I think you're right. But
Yeah, they
but
don't want to
then-
hear anything.
But then over time, and not long time, if they look at how many artists don't reapply to the show, leave the show, and what happens to the quality of applicants, especially nowadays with all the blogs and word gets out, how do shows think that they can maintain themselves with any level of good art as an art show if the artists leave because the show's not working?
But I think it takes a lot for them to see that. They don't just, entries are down 1 year or something, or the entries aren't as good. They don't catch on unless they have lots of experience. They don't catch on that they need to do something and they need to do it now.
Yeah, they need somebody like Barry to advise them.
Now, you know, the one thing I'm going to tell you that is affecting, and they need to bring, and the problem is there's not that many of them. They need to bring African American artists to their with African American artwork.
No, they don't. No, they don't. Look at the important thing is it's a blind jury. It doesn't matter if they're from Mars or black or green or whatever they are. Blind
I
jury.
you missing my point. I did you let me finish the what I was saying.
Yeah.
So they need to bring more African American artist type of work, more what black people are buying because the majority of the area, the people with money in the area, black people, and when I go to the houses, the only thing that they have is African American type of work. So they probably need to inject a little bit, look for, invite 2 or 3 or 5 of them to see how it goes. You know, I just wonder how Jaja did. And I want to ask him how it did when I see him next week. Because he's one of the few black American artists that he's not even, I didn't even know he's from the United States. I know he's from Texas. But I
Is that
wonder
the art-
how.
That's
well, that's
another
not the
world.
United States.
Is that the artist that was across from me, Oscar?
No, he
Okay.
wasn't in my, he wasn't by Medici.
Okay.
So
Because the black artist across from me sold nothing off the walls all show long. He's there. He sold only a few.
But the question is that the work looked more like a for, I'm sorry, it's going to sound weird, but they sound more for white people or more for black people?
Well, it shouldn't matter if the jury's blind, because actually I think a lot of the work of black artists stands out as quite different than the work of white artists. But I think what with Barry is saying is true. It's supposed to be a blind jury, and once they start walking away from a blind jury, but I think maybe what they need to do is change some of the jurors that are sitting on the jury to say that have a different vision.
No.
There you go.
What they need to do really is invite more African American. You can do it blind jury. I'm not saying the opposite of that, but they need to start inviting more African American artists to apply to that show in particular. That's what they need to do, and let the jury happen. They need to try to bring those artists into the fold. I'm not saying they get them in because they're just black. I'm saying like invite them to apply. Just like they invite me to apply to a show, they should invite more African American artists to apply to the show. Because the area, I know there's a lot of people with money, and when I walk the neighborhood, all the African American people around here ask me that you did the 57th Street Art Fair. They go in there, but they all say, even though the client that I went to say, I saw it, I told me, do you think it's worth for me walking 57th Street Art Fair? And I said, honestly, no, because it's not cared for the type of artwork that you have in your house. It's not cared for any African American artists in there. There's barely anything. There might be one or two this year, but it's not going to be. I thought they go to Old Town to look Henry.
But can I ask you a question then? Do you think
Yeah.
that African Americans buy mostly African American art, or do you think
Oh,
they buy
yeah.
across the board?
Yeah, definitely.
In
If you
Chicago,
if it's
which
African
is
American,
different than the rest of the United States. It's not that way. It's not that way in West Palm Beach at the
I just
what's
telling
that
you,
show?
Chicago.
Art of Grove.
I just telling you, here in Chicago, when you go to an African American person, most of the work, and it's expensive work, is from African American artists.
Hey, and I get a lot of sales from Jewish people, but I'm not saying they should attract that the show should attract a certain ethnic group. Look at it's self-motivation. Nobody came to me and said, "Oh, you should apply to these shows, and I'll show you how to do it." No, I was self-motivated because I wanted to sell. I wanted to keep working, and and the only way I can keep working is if I sell my work. So I look for places to go to sell my work, and art fairs was one of those things. I didn't need to have, it's self-motivation. That's what's missing. That's the problem. Self-motivation. To say that, and you know what? Nobody knew what raku was. I had to train them. I had to teach them what it was so they would buy it. If there's an African American that has work, and they want to cross over into a different market, an art fair is a really good way to do it. Be self-motivated. Figure it out. Ask some artist, how do you apply? And write it down and go and do it. And go find out and get good images and everything and get a booth like the rest of us. I am really opposed. I'm violently opposed to, not violently, but I'm really
Excuse
opposed
me.
to anything other than a blind jury and self-motivation.
Excuse me. I think what Oscar is actually talking about is that there are certain groups of people that might not even think to apply to the show because the shows are very white. And in his experience, and Oscar, I don't want to talk for you. This is what I think you're saying. In his experience of hanging art, he's finding that maybe the vision of the work at any art fair is lacking in certain departments. So he's not necessarily saying, allow people in just because of the color of their skin, but
I know
more so the diversity of work, like from different visions. There are some shows that, for example, only take in jewelry that's like oxidized silver and don't take in any high-end gold granulation jewelry, which I think is a mistake also. So I think he's talking about having, instead of just like a type of work, having a variety of visions. Is that kind of what you mean, Oscar?
Hey, why don't you ask Larry Allen how he does it, or any of those other really great black artists that have really great work that win awards and come and do the shows? Ask them. They wouldn't want what you're talking about.
And besides, but part of it seems it's one thing to apply to the show. It's another thing to have a set of jurors that will see, appreciate, understand the body of work in any sense. So is part of this discussion changing the jurors so that you're not, because regardless of who applies, if they don't see it any differently, it's not going to make a difference.
Yeah,
I think you've got it.
You're right. It has to start with the jurors.
Yeah.
Well, it has to start with the show.
Well, and who they choose for jurors.
Well, yeah, but the show has to be proactive in going for diversity,
So how
And
do we change that then, Pep?
getting the
No, I
information,
disagree.
let me talk, getting the information out to other groups. You know, I don't know, do African American artists have a group that they belong to? You know, I don't know. How about African American artists just coming out of college? Talk to the colleges.
But I think Barry has a point that to an extent they have to there's a part that they have to figure out themselves. And one thing would be going to the shows, seeing the kind of work that gets in there, and going like and looking at the people that are going through the show and go, oh, is there anything here I see that would be advantageous for me to apply to this show, or to go read reviews, blogs, things like that. But then the next step is, if we don't change the kinds of jurors that we have at shows, none of that's going to make a difference. It's going to depend on, because I think we've all seen Black artists at shows, and like Barry's saying, and some of them are great artists. But if the jurors don't see differently, then that's never going to change. They're going to see the same thing, regardless of how the show promotes itself and who they promote to. It's not going to change the landscape.
If it's a blind jury and they're looking at images, how are they going to tell who made it? What ethnic group they made it?
His point is that you need jurors that are maybe not unidimensional, you know, that can look at work, that they don't only pick work that they like or the same style of work. They could pick varied work. You know, when you're a juror, you pick work that you might not want in your home, but you could appreciate,
Yes.
you know, the skill and all of that. And you know, that's really an issue.
That should be the only criteria. How
But-
good it is.
But
Yeah.
you are thinking like I should be blind jury, and I'm just saying what I'm emphasizing more than anything else is it's specifically for 57th Street Art Fair. You're in an area that primarily surrounded by Black communities. You need to make a conscious effort to go out, find African American artists, invite them to apply to the show. I'm not saying that apply to the show is different from invite them to the show.
Right.
So they still have to go through the same process as everybody else, but they have to apply to the show. But if you don't start, because I'm going to tell you one thing, the Moist does that. Stephen King does that. He was talking about that in one of the podcasts that Douglas and
Well,
what's
Douglas
doing, and he mentioned that he go after minorities at some to the most to invite them to apply because he want to have a more diversity in there. But what the key word is inviting them to apply.
Right.
It's not saying because you are brown, Black, Chinese, you're in. No, it's saying you have to invite those people to apply, and hopefully they get into the show, and hopefully you start bringing new blood into the system. But that's what I know from this area, and I'm going to tell you, that's what happens. You know.
See, but it goes to what whoever had said before too about expanding. I don't know if maybe it was you, expanding the advertising for the show, because in all my years of doing shows in Chicago, I've always talked to people that buy my art, and I ask them what other shows they go to. And the one show that is the exception, a lot of people just go locally. So that's an interesting phenomena by itself. But the one show that people go to from all over Chicago is Old Town. So Old Town has developed an approach that they reach out to all parts of Chicago. And I think 57th Street, and I think all shows, but 57th Street needs to do that too. How does Old Town do that? How can we do that to bring in people from all these communities out there? Because like you said, they want to buy art. The community is growing down there in 57th Street. Hyde Park is growing too. All those places are growing. So bring people in from all those outlying communities to see the art at this one unique show, 57th Street, nice neighborhood. but I don't think they understand that that's what they need to do. I think they're kind of, like you're saying, if they're down to one person running the show during the whole year and they're not doing a lot of advertising and not effective advertising, they're missing crowd of art buyers in Chicago. And it's a big crowd.
And she had hired an advertising agency to do the advertising for her. So I really don't know. I know that the people that bought pieces from me was from Evanston.
Was from where?
Evanston.
Okay.
So but you know, I just start wondering, and the other person lived in 54th Street. So
yeah, well, the few people that bought from me were all from that community within a few blocks. So in a sense, that's good, but I think we'd all love to see a lot more diversity in the crowd, because all those outlying communities bring in lots of different kinds of people, which, going to the discussion about the kinds of artwork there, would probably make a difference on what, at least what's sold. And if we can ever address the jurors to get in a little broader perspective with the jurors, a broader base of art that's going to sell to all these people from Chicago that come in. And it's a good, you know, the top shows in the country, and I think Barry probably knows this from what he does, is they draw in people from all over. Des Moines, Iowa, Plaza in Kansas City, St. Louis Arts Festival. They draw in from all over the place. And I don't think 57th Street's figured that out yet.
yeah, because in July, there's the DeSalvo Museum puts a show for, I don't think they're done since COVID, but they used to put a show, and it was basically all African American artists. Exclusively because it's an African American museum, obviously, but
yeah.
So
But,
the market's there.
Yeah, and also the One of a Kind show is in Chicago, right? And that draws,
Yeah,
I understand, a lot of high-end buyers to that show. So they're there. It's just they're kind of somewhat absent from 57th Street.
so I don't know.
Is there a way to suggest other jury selection? I mean, who's doing the jurying? Because if you have all old white guys jurying, you know, it's
No, it's a good question. Myself, I think the problem is that they have artists do it. And I think they need to involve the art buying patron community more. And because I think, would you agree?
No.
Agree.
No.
I want people that have an education in art that know what they're looking at. And it used to be that way 30 years ago, 40 years ago. It's not that way anymore. When somebody comes in, when some judge comes into my booth and asks me, what is this? That's unbelievable. Why are they jurying if they don't know what they're looking at?
Yep. Well, yeah.
You know,
When academia is a juror is
From academia, yeah.
yeah.
because I'm sorry, when it comes to like my category, they don't know squat about jewelry. And
That's
that
funny.
there will be stringers and there will be buy sell. You know, they don't know any better.
I'm laughing because the ones that know about jewelry don't know anything about what I'm doing about clay. So every medium can say the same thing about the jurors that is not in their category. You know, it's a problem.
But see, that applies even to artists, because artists don't understand.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So they either need a more diversified jury that has people that will understand and only jury ceramics or painting or something like that. But if they're only going to bring on 3 or 4 jurors and they're going to jury from home and they're not going to talk about the work at all, there's not going to be a discussion of what they're looking at, we're hosed. You know, it's been that way for a long time, and I don't see it getting any better. In fact, I see it getting worse.
Some shows have separate jurors for 2D and 3D.
Yeah.
That would help. That'd be a start.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, realistically, do you want jurors to? It would be really nice if jurors could sit down and spend 2 or 3 minutes talking about each entry.
Yeah.
But jurors don't have a month to jury a show.
No, but for the amount that they charge for jury fees these days.
But that doesn't go to the jurors.
Pardon?
That doesn't go to jurors.
That's right. That's right.
But doesn't it go to the jury process?
No, it goes
No.
to the show,
It goes into the general fund.
right?
You have to actually look at the language. It doesn't say, they don't say this is a jury fee. It's an administrative fee. Look at all these shows on Zap and see what they're calling it. They don't call it jury fees anymore. It's the only people that know jury fees are people like old codgers like us that have been doing it for a long time. They don't call it that anymore. It's an administrative fee, which you
It's
can't
a-
argue with. Because
It's an application fee is what they call it.
Yeah, I think that's right. Application.
Regard-
fee.
regardless of what they call it. It used to be that people paid their jurors and paid them well for expertise. I have done a lot of jurying this year where I've been paid nothing.
Mhm.
One of my shows paid me $25.
Holy cow.
Well, let me
Yeah.
ask you this though, when
what
they
about
used
for
to,
gas to get there?
yeah, when they used to do it the old fashioned way, when they used to jury in a room, even if they did it off computers, but the jurors were sitting in the same room, looking at the same slides, same kind of computers. Do you think the jury results were better or worse or no different?
I don't
Better.
think,
You
I really
What?
don't.
don't think it was any better?
Like about remote jurying is that each artist, as far as from my standpoint, gets the best possible part of me because I'm not tired. I can stop and go to the bathroom. I can stop and go get a cup of coffee. I can take a break if I need to, where the in-person ones
Mhm.
set on a schedule.
What
So
about-
I
I was curious. I was curious how that works.
what do you mean?
Can they take a week to jury? Can they look at over, if you're jurying it at home?
They give normally what they do is they give you like maybe a week to get your jurying done. And then
Uh-huh.
sometimes then everybody gets together and discusses the results. And sometimes they don't.
Mhm. Yeah, because with a week, you can spend a long time looking at the work. You can even go to their website. You could do a lot of investigative, there's a lot you could do if you have a whole week to jury the show.
Right.
And
Assuming
why-
you got the time.
However, if you're jurying at home like that, how do you know people are really fulfilling their obligation?
Yeah, well, there's trust.
Well, they have to put scores on there. They have to put numbers in there.
Right.
There's 10 entries on a page. And they have to finish the page before they go to the next page.
No,
Mhm.
current-
Okay.
no,
So why is it that shows
No?
don't feel the jury process? Because to
No.
me, what we're discussing here is that the shows are making a decision that the jury process isn't that important to the event. Why is that?
What? Wait, I
What?
don't understand. I don't
Well, if they're
understand
not
that.
willing to, I mean, if they're just going to say, here's the images, look at them at your leisure, which is good. I agree with that. But there's no point of discussion. And to Barry's point, if you see something you don't really understand what it is, who are you going to ask? How many artists will actually
you
send
put
a question back to the director and say, what is this that I'm looking at? Or I have somewhat of a problem with this. Is this according to your rules? Like I've seen painters. Pardon?
there's a place right on the jury where you're jurying for any comments or notes.
I know,
Anything.
but you still, and I've juried, the biggest show I've juried was 968 applications. Yeah, and it took about 4.5 days to do it. But I sent back lots of questions to the promoter going like, okay, before I judge this and give it a score, I need to understand a bit more what I'm looking at or what I'm seeing is a little problematic. How do your rules handle this? Like there was a painter that had all kinds of famous paintings all over the picture. And I'm like, well, is this okay with you that this is a lot of this looks like it's borderline copyright infringement? Things like that you can ask, which in the old days when you were sitting in a room together, you could talk about. Nowadays, it's a little harder.
When you sat in the same room together, rarely were you allowed to talk. once everyone had scored, you could go back through them all and they would say, like, this is in, this is waitlist, this is not. And if you had questions on any of the things, that's the time that you would do it. And then you're allowed to change your vote.
Wow, because I remember those days of doing them when they had the mock juries that we could sit in on to see, and they seemed like they asked questions a lot on those mock juries, and I
I
thought,
think it depends. It depends upon the show. I mean, I was a juror on a show once, and you were allowed to, while you were looking, after you did the whole run through of everything, first you'd run through everything in each category, but then you could, when you're really scoring, you could say, does anyone understand how that's made? Or, you could ask whatever questions you wanted. So I think each jury is different. So it just depends.
but then to address questions like if
Thank
you have
you.
concerns if this is buy sell, if you're sitting there at your own computer and there's no way to ask a question, how do you ever address that question?
I put it right in the notes.
Oh.
And those always get read by whoever is running the jury. I mean, it comes right up on their screen. And then afterwards, if afterwards we are all gathering to talk about them, then that's my chance to do more.
Okay, and that's good, but do you think most juries work that way?
I would
I
think so.
think they're all different. I think they're all different.
Yeah, they're all different.
Because
I
I've
agree.
heard that maybe it was on the podcast. I think Douglas Sigworth was a juror for the Pearl, and he said everyone was quiet. So, I think they're just all so varied.
But you're not going to talk during the actual jurying because that's not fair.
Asking a question isn't fair. If you don't know, like let's say it's some jewelry and I'm on the jury and I don't understand the work, I can't ask, is this special? Is this a certain technique that that is very skilled to do? I think you should be able to ask those questions.
No,
I've
you-
attended the open jury at Columbus like 4 or 5 times. And even though it's an open jury, they still let the jurors discuss. Where when I went to the open jury at Fort Worth, during the first round, it was open to artists to sit in the back of the room, but there was no discussion by the jurors.
Which do you think is
See,
more
they all-
effective from being in both of them? Which do you think is more effective on being able to
Well,
make it?
I think that they need to be able to discuss if they have to. But at the same time, one of the jurors was trying to color the way photography was juried by the rest of the jurors.
Well, that's a whole different story.
Yeah, and I spoke to the show director the next morning before the jurors came.
And what did he say? Was he aware or did
Yeah,
he?
he said, "Don't worry, they're not going to listen to him."
Good.
I mean,
but that's
so
if there's discussion, you can sway people
Yeah.
or another. And I want each juror to make their own decision by what
so
you're at.
well, when I was on a particular jury, you were allowed to say, you were allowed to ask questions about technique as opposed to the discussion. But like, if I'm looking at paintings, I really don't know if something is being projected. Like some painters will project something and paint it from that. And I learned a lot, but you were allowed to ask technical questions.
Yes. And quite often that does happen. Well, not quite often. Sometimes that does happen.
But isn't that a good part of a jury process is to be able to ask technical questions so that not only yourself, but everybody understands what it is that they're actually looking at.
Yeah, hopefully at least one of the people in the room knows
Can
how to
explain it.
answer the question.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no purity in this is the thing. And
Yeah.
there's never going to be.
But
No.
since so much of the show revolves around the artwork that gets into it, to me, the jury process is critical, absolutely critical. And I think it's fallen into a state where a lot of show promoters just don't care. They variations on the theme. They pass it to the jurors. They don't give the jurors good instructions. It's good that you jury from home, but they don't encourage you to ask questions, good feedback as you go through the process. And the end result is that I think a lot of stuff gets in that shouldn't be in. For
I don't know
example,
if that's fair. I don't know if that's fair to say because they're all so different. That's the thing. It's like sales tax in any state is completely different. I think that's how different juries are for each
You don't-
show.
Yeah,
You don't
I
think
don't know
some-
about that, Allison, to be honest with you, because sometimes I'm not discarding anybody quality of work, but sometimes you see the same artist doing the same show year after year.
Right.
Nothing new goes in there, and doesn't have to do with
the quality of
the
your work.
quality. It's just just as it is. Because I can guarantee you that for every good artist that gets to one of the top shows, there's another at least 3 equally better. They always say, I cannot get to that show.
Yeah.
And when you see the work
Yeah.
next to each other, you go like, this work is better than this one. What are you doing different to not get into the
Yeah.
show?
Yeah.
We've all go ahead.
If there's like, let's say there's 100 spaces and there's 300 applicants and there's 10 shows that are like that are like really good. Why is it that some people seem to get in every year to every show every year? They're not necessarily better than somebody that gets into two other shows. I mean, there is a top, and how is it that some people get in every year to every show every year, and they're like in play, they're not any better than me. They just get in, how
What
is
do their
that?
jury images look like?
Exactly. That's the thing, because the jury images, you would not, I've seen people's jury images where I know their work well, and I would never have recognized that those were their images, because I don't remember seeing anything like that wonderful in their booth.
But Bonnie, it comes to the conversation that you were saying, and I bring that up again. And I know, no, we're not starting that drama again. I think that it's one of the two things. Or everybody does the booth like a gallery, for the jury, or you put the booth for the actual show. Because I'm really sick and tired of you go to the jury and you see this is perfect gallery looking shot for the booth shot, and then when you go to the show, the booth looks like shit.
Amen.
Yeah.
That doesn't
Or they
belong
have
there.
different work. They have more mass-produced work in their booth as opposed to what they jury in with.
Yeah. And you want to hear the funny thing about this? I help a friend of mine to do the booth to look perfect, like a gallery looking, and they got into the plaza, and I didn't get in.
Oh.
Yeah. I never get in anymore.
Yeah, but you're right, Oscar. If the booth slide is supposed to represent the
The
how
actual
your booth looks at the show, there are
Yep.
so many artists that do not do that. They make it look just like you're saying, like a beautiful little gallery, all
They-
3 walls,
They
1 or 2
learn.
pictures.
Yep.
They've learned how to play the game.
But they're
Well,
cheating the system. They're cheating the
Hey.
rules, and the show promoter isn't enforcing their own rules, and that's bad.
Yeah.
Well-
Well,
Well, that's the 10-second jury rule.
Yeah.
It's like picking up food off the floor and eating it.
Right.
Well,
By the way,
Not sure I understand that.
Court,
I'm
by
a
the way,
huge
Court, congratulations for
round.
getting into Plaza using that image we all said not to use.
Right.
I love
Congratulations,
That's great.
well, I found out. Yeah, that's. I'm working on that. That may not have worked the way I thought. So I can't say anymore.
But congrats.
Oh, okay.
So
Why did they tell you not to bring that picture to the show?
I can't go into it.
Of
You're
course.
being recorded.
Really?
Yep.
That's funny.
Hey,
So,
Barry,
yeah.
do you always turn pots with your feet?
No, I got my feet on the only
Yeah, I
when
know.
I'm trimming.
But that's what it looks like from here because you're so small in the picture.
so I got
I'm
something.
perfectly centered in the middle there. I'm pulling an Allison. You know, Allison's always sitting at the bench working, and I thought I'm going to do this.
Or cooking.
All
Cooking.
right.
Hey, I'm doing,
Go ahead.
Bonnie's doing laundry.
yeah.
Yeah, great.
I did laundry at 6 o'clock this morning.
So I got something I want to throw out. I ran into an artist, pretty well-known artist at 57th Street. And in the course of our little discussion about shows and getting into shows and jurying and all that kind of stuff, he said, and this is a quote, that, well, look, artists are carnies. You guys, how do you feel about a comment like that, that we're carnies, that's
Oh, that's no fair, Ron.
It's
Don't
so
say
ridiculous.
that.
No, he was,
Actually,
he was
to-
totally serious. He wasn't joking.
No,
I know.
that
I
doesn't,
He was. I
but that
know.
doesn't
To a
deserve
gr-
a comment.
No, but to a degree, it's, I get the idea. I mean,
You know
listen,
what?
carnies are artists. They're skilled.
No, they're not.
People-
You look at the definition of art of carny. Look it up.
Okay.
That's
You won't
right.
find one that's even close to that. There
That's right.
nothing positive for us as artists. in
So-
the definition of
So
carny.
carnies are not circus people then? Am
They're
I
circus
mistaken?
people. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
we're circus
people.
people.
Yeah, but they're artists. They, they,
No, no, the people that set up the carnival, the people that run the food vendors, that run the machines,
okay.
those are carnies.
So,
Oh,
And there are a
okay, so
few
the-
other definitions that have evolved that are not complimentary at all.
well,
People
then
that
So
your
say
the-
friend,
this is the
your
cheap
friend
people.
doesn't understand the definition of the word.
Right.
No, he
maybe I don't-
does understand it because I know who's saying Larry.
But he meant it.
carny is not
meant
a
it.
carny is not a performer then at the show, correct? They're the
No.
roadies.
They're the roadies, basically, that do the work at the
Okay.
events.
It's basically
Well,
like
then-
in today's modern music world, it's the people that build the stage, does the sound,
Right.
everything else that you don't see. And then
But they're not the artist.
they are not the artists. But they are the
Okay, I
people
get
that
it. I get it.
they are the people that make the show happen, but they not do the performer. You know, like
They're the people that don't get credit.
yeah.
Yes. I agree with that one.
I had an interesting
Yeah.
conversation with a younger artist at Prairie Village this weekend, and he kind of had a lot of not so nice things to say about older artists and some things like that. And I
Like what? Tell me. Spit it out.
talking about some of the art show etiquette and some things like that. He says, I don't care. Says
Yeah.
that's old people. The art
Yeah.
show etiquette's old people. And it
Well,
was
then that's a generalization. I mean,
and it was kind of like, okay, but how would you like it if somebody did something that negatively impacted your booth? Because that's what you're doing. And we're specifically talking about sitting out in front of the booth and
Oh.
going out past, the front of your booth.
Yeah.
right.
And we were talking about some other things, and the guy was doing an art show just to do an art show. He's a big mural artist. He's a fantastic mural artist, and he was kind of, exploring doing art shows with some of his paintings, and he was using the art show to basically get mural customers, kind of as a marketing thing as well. And he wanted to talk to every person that walked by. He saw them as a potential customer, and he wanted to talk to them, and he wanted to engage with them. And he talked about artists sitting in the back of the booth and this, that, and the other. And it's like, yeah, you have some good points here, but you also don't understand this either. And it was one of those things where I wanted to say, do this for 10 or 15 years and then come back and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's possible he could just be an asshole.
That too. And that was probably true.
Yeah,
Oh,
I think the vote would be heavily in that favor.
Or he could be the guy that made commented on my YouTube from last week's Zoom meeting that I wouldn't want to be next to one of those people.
Right.
One of the things I commented on what started the whole discussion was he had a bio. He had four 8.5 by 11 sheets. One was his bio and information, and it was small type on an 8.5 by 11 sheet. And next to that, he had three QR codes. Above that, he had two 8.5 by 11 sheets, and each 8.5 by 11 sheet had probably 8 or 10 photos of his murals on it. And he kept going on and on about how he was a designer and how he was a designer. And I said, you've got this 8.5 by 11 page full of text. I said, I can't read it. Oh, it's 14 point. That's plenty big. I said, maybe at your age, but anybody over 50 can't read it. Oh, well, blah, 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 blah.
Sounds like
Well,
he
that's-
printed out his website and put it on the
He's
wall.
marketing
Right.
to his age group.
And, I made some comment, he said, that QR code gets me, I've got 15,000 followers on Instagram. And I didn't get a chance, but I wanted to ask him, okay, last year, what percentage of your income in your art business directly came from Instagram?
Good question.
Right.
Yes.
I don't care if you have 15,000 followers. You can have 15 million followers. But if those 15 million followers are not bringing you, if it's only bringing you 1% of your income,
It's useless.
Right.
What did he
I
say?
had
so
Actually, I'd take 1% of 15 million.
sure.
no, 15 million followers, not
You do.
$15 million.
No, I know.
But and we talked for a while, and it was kind of heated for a little while, but then he just started, I think he started to get some of what I was saying. And he had some valid points about a lot of older artists sitting in the back of the booth playing on their phone or writing.
Wait.
Well,
I've
wait.
seen younger artists. It's to just give a generalization like that.
Yeah.
It's not really fair. I see plenty of young artists on their phone too, but it's I don't think it has an age group
I
as
agree.
far as that goes.
But
Yeah.
that was one of his characterizations of older artists. But any artist sitting in the back of your booth, not a And I
Well,
said,
but then, something, he's right.
well, he is. He is
Artists
right.
sitting in the back of their booth playing on their phone shouldn't be doing shows.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally.
Wait. I'm going to tell you one thing. It depends. I don't sit down. Me personally, I don't like to sit down in the back of the booth, but I don't like to sit down in the front of the booth neither. So I usually stand outside the booth and I let people walk into the booth and I see them interested, then I approach them.
He probably stands there and points into his booth and says, "Oh, wow, look at that."
No, I actually, if you're next to me in one of those shows, you would say, I would tell people, you can go inside the booth and take a closer look at the work.
Yeah.
Because I'm usually outside pushing people to look inside and take a look, and I always ask them to. But I truly believe that most people, if you stand in front of your booth, sit in front of your booth, people will not walk into your booth.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And they might not see a closer look to your work. And if you're in the back looking at your phone, they will not look at your work because they don't want to interrupt you neither. Because they assume it's something important.
And as a jeweler, sitting behind my cases, if I'm looking down, people won't come into the booth. I'll always have to kind of look up and be alert, catch people's eye, and then they'll come in. So, it really, body language is very important.
If I see people standing outside of my booth, stop looking in my booth, I invite them in.
Yeah.
You know, and I usually kind of
Yeah.
do it. You know, I kind of joke with people and I'll say, you know, I don't bite, or, you know, you can come in and I don't charge, you know, things like that. And it kind of breaks the ice. And, you know, a lot of
Right.
people come in. Or people will be standing out, or people will walk into my booth and they'll both have a beer or something in their hands. And I'll go, I'm sorry, I don't allow alcohol in my booth unless you bring me some.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And do you guys all that are saying this find that people that are hesitant to walk into the booth actually ever buy?
Yeah.
That's the thing. You never
Yeah.
know. You never know. But if you know engage the person and invite them to take a look, you never know. And the other thing is, like, in Hyde Park, a girl came in there and said, like, I really can't afford. I just finished school and I really like your work. And I said, you know, take my car, man, for the future, you can buy something. I just have a couple in October. They went to Rittenhouse. They just finished med school in here, and they bought a first piece on hour for me because I was nice to them when they were still going to school over here.
Mm-hmm.
The people who don't buy come into the booth, their hands behind their back. Oh, I don't wear any jewelry. And I'm nice to them. But I've learned that you know, I engage so many people, it's exhausting, and maybe those people I could be friendly with, but not get so involved with, perhaps.
I
And
had
you
a
never
young lady,
know.
it was interesting. I had a young lady come into my booth and I didn't, a lot of tattoos. She came into my booth with her boyfriend, maybe, I don't know. She came into to my booth with a gentleman. They were both younger, looked around, spent quite a bit of time looking around. And then I noticed they leave, but I thought they left, and I looked up and she's standing just on the front edge of my booth, staring at one of my pieces. And I got out of my chair and I walked up to her and started a conversation, and, you know, asked her, I walked up and said, okay, which piece caught your eye and what are you looking at? We talked about it for a little bit. She wound up buying a small print of it, you know, because I went up and I
Nice.
talked to her.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
if I just sat back there, she would have walked off. Now,
Yeah.
you know,
So another example is problem solving. Like, this woman came into my booth. Necklaces never fit me. These are all probably too short. That's what she said. But I love that necklace. I said, well, I can modify any of my work, you know. And then we talked more. And then I said, you know, if you want that necklace, there's no charge for me to make it a little longer. And, you know, I'll have to take and so that made the sale, because she loved the necklace, but she knows nothing fits her right.
Mhm.
So there's also that aspect, the problem solving. I mean, you know, even with photography, you could be solving problems.
well, I had an older couple come in my booth and they spent a lot of time in my booth, spent a lot of time looking. And I got the standard, you know, don't have any wall space. And so I stopped. I said, okay, let me ask you this. This is something I'm looking at doing. And is this something, I'm not asking you to buy it. I said, is this something that you would consider and be interested in, since you don't have wall space? If I had, let's say 11 by 14 prints in a box that you could set on a table, is that something that might interest you? And he hemmed and hawed, but the lady immediately said yes.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Oh, that's cool.
I never sit in the back of my booth, and I engage with everybody that comes in, but there's a timing aspect. I don't jump on them when they first come in unless I say hello, you know.
Yeah.
Hi, how are you? And then I leave it and I let them look and I listen to their conversation because, you know, something that they're looking at, or a color or something, I might have something in the back, or I might reinforce what they're thinking. I mean, you know, but I never sit in the back. and reading a book in the back, that's like the worst thing you can do.
Right.
Yeah, you might
But
as
I
well
talk to
stay home.
everybody.
Yeah, plus I think for a lot of us that do, like, say, two-dimensional work, put things on walls, you lose a wall opening up into the back to sit. So I think sitting out front and having every possible inch of wall space is a good thing.
But
I-
you know, Ron, I don't think that honestly, I don't recall in every single show I've done this year how many people walk to the back wall to see anything.
That's because your pieces are so big, they don't have to walk to the back wall.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, the back wall has a small pieces, and they still don't walk to the back wall.
Are you talking
My
about
experience is sort of the opposite. I have a lot of people, because I sit out front, so I'm not in the booth that they have to confront me. I'm outside, they walk in and they walk throughout the booth and they walk to the back wall and they look around corners and stuff. And like when I had the double booth this weekend. So they really engage the work, and it's nice. But like Barry says, I listen to him. If I hear him talking and go like, well, that's a little too, we need a bigger piece for the space or something, then you're there to be able to say, well, these do come in different sizes, and however you need to address them, you're paying attention, which is good.
Yeah. When I don't do shows anymore. Barry can vouch for that. But but I used to sit behind my desk, and when people came into my booth, I would stand up and put my chair aside. So I was always available on eye level with them.
yeah.
Well,
Will's
if
going to kill me.
I'm sitting down in my booth, and I have a tall chair, and somebody walks in, I pretend to get up for something else, like I'm reaching for something. This
Yeah.
way, 'cause if you get up, then they're like, no, and they run away. But sometimes you just have to sit down.
But see, I think it's one of the nice things about the director chairs is you're up higher, so it's not
Right.
like you're sitting down.
Right.
I still like to stand to people, and I don't like to sit down in the chair. I think that it makes you feel like an arrogant a little bit about it.
But see, when I see people jumping up out of their chairs, if I walk in someplace, I'm thinking, oh, used car salesman, I'm out of here.
Jack in the box.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I got the chair because if I get tired, I want to sit down for a little bit. But that's about it.
You don't jump up.
I
Oh.
don't, I found if I get up and I go anywhere, I found that if I sit in the back of the booth and engage people from the back of the booth, I get more people going through my booth. That's just my experience. Everybody
Interesting.
else is different. But if I sit in the back of the booth, and if I see people standing outside not coming in, I'll engage them from the back of the booth across the 10 or 12 feet. If they're standing outside, I'll invite them in. I'll ask them if they have questions. I'll ask them, which piece are you looking at? I moved
Yeah,
some
I do
things
all
around
that
in my
too.
booth this last show, and I really like the flow and the way it works. One of the things this younger artist down the way was telling me is that people want to walk in and kind of go through your booth. There kind of be a flow. I feel like my booth has that now. So
That's true.
That's great.
That is true.
Good
you
job.
know,
So in my booth, I have an arc. A lot of jewelers go straight across, but I have an arc, and I've been using it for a long time, so people can come in, and then there's privacy. Jewelry is very intimate, and I find that if people are interested enough, they'll come in, or I'll encourage them to come in. But it's certainly not a distraction. I mean, it's there's the flow of people that are just going to walk by anyway, but it makes a private space in the booth, at a crowded show, and it provides a little bit of a calm oasis, and it's again, and one of the cases is facing out, but it's in a little bit. It's not at the edge of my booth, and so that actually works well for me, I find.
well, I came up with something. I came up with a game for kids to play in my booth. And so when mom and dad come in and they're looking and the kid's being a little antsy and wants to move on, I ask them if they want to play a game. And I have one of my new images is a couple dogs in a window. And I have a couple images with cats on the porch. And the game is find the dog and the two cats. Find the pictures with the dog and find the pictures with the cats. And now then I have the people, and I get mom and dad are now engaged, and they're now looking at every single photo in my booth, looking for the two cats and the dog.
That's great.
That's great.
And, you know, the kids are now happy because I've engaged with the kid, you know, and they have something to do. And, you know, I had a group, I knew they weren't going to buy anything. It was like 3 families. They were standing in front of my booth, totally blocking my booth. And I said, hey, you kids want to play a game? And I wound up with almost all of them in my booth looking for the animals and stuff now, but I got them out from in front of my booth so people could walk by and look in.
Mm-hmm.
You're learning this, Court. You're learning.
Well, I got to redo some of my my business cards I did for kids. I had business cards specifically for kids that had photos of my studio cat at the time and also one of the house cats. And there's a little story on the back, but also had my contact information across the bottom. Had a little story about the cat on the back. So when the kids would come in, again, if the kids are, you know, trying to get mom or want to go somewhere else and are distracting mom and dad from looking, I could distract the kid with one of these little business cards and say, hey, do you like cats? Here's my cat. Here's a picture of my cat. And, oh, yeah, there's a story on the back. You can read it or get mom or dad to read it to you later. And, you know, it would give mom and dad a minute or two more to look at my work.
Love it.
You know, I haven't done them for a while because one of the cards was Smacky. She was my studio cat and she passed away. So I'm probably going to have to do one of Mr. Gray. But you know, they worked pretty well, you know, and even though the cards were a little bit expensive, I'll probably get some cheaper cards done next time. They worked, you know, to keep the thing I hate most is when somebody comes into my booth and is really engaging with my work and either a kid or another adult says, let's go, and they leave and drags them out. So this is a way to, you know, deal with kids that don't want to be there.
Hey, I got a question for everybody. When there's a kids tent and they're, you know, and they want you to donate something that they're going to buy for $5 or $10 or $20, whatever, do you guys do it?
I've never even heard of that. Like I've heard of a
Always.
kids tent, but not a donation.
God,
Like
I
I've
used to
never.
make- yeah, I used to make a fortune at Oklahoma City.
Yeah, me too. And Springfield Oil Capital too.
Right.
Yeah. And the thing is that a lot of times, sort of like Court was talking about, kids, and the beauty to me of the children's tents is kids go in without the parents. So they get to go choose exactly what they want from what's there. And a lot of times then they bring, the parents will bring the kids to the booth to meet you. And then sometimes they find something that they like.
Yes.
They'll buy it, right?
Yeah. That happens.
Yep.
You know what I do, honestly? If the mom and the kid walk into the booth and the kid's looking really, really closely, paying attention, the mom let it do it. And they're not going to, sometimes you can tell that they don't have the money to buy it. But I usually, for little kids, and I'm talking about under 10 years old, if they like something, I ask them, what is your favorite piece? And I usually give them a print. I don't, you know, it's just $5 for me to make one. That's a cup of coffee. It's no big deal. And most of the time, sometimes the parents give me the full price, or sometimes they're really grateful for it. But every show that I've done something like that, most of the time the shows turn out to be good for me.
Yeah.
So, but you know, when I read the crowd, and if the kids really into it, and it happens all the time. And people, I did it 3 times in Hyde Park, and everybody was really happy. So
If I can tell that they're like a high school student, or if a kid comes in, or somebody that I can tell is like maybe a college students are tough for me, but like a high school student or younger, and they start pulling out their own money, I call it a student discount. I give them a discount. You know, usually they're buying a $30 print. I'll give them a $5 discount.
Cool.
And like Oscar, you know, it doesn't hurt. $5 doesn't hurt me on that print, but you know, it shows. You know, I tell them, and I make a deal. I don't make a big deal out of it, but I say, hey, you know, I appreciate younger people buying art.
Yeah.
If people
I did one of those in Oklahoma City, and you know, and it's not really a donation. I mean, you're getting the $5. The donation part is the, you know, the other
Commission.
95 off the retail. Okay. And so the kid bought the piece, and he was with his parents, and they came over, and the kid goes, I want to buy a piece for my friend. It's his birthday. And I said, well, I can't give it to you for $5. And he goes, no, I want to buy a regular price. And then at the end, I said, okay, now you got 2 pieces for X amount of dollars. How much was each piece if you divide it up? You know, I turned it into a math story problem. It was great. The parents loved it.
Great.
But I was impressed that the kid came in and bought something for his friend. Who does that, you know?
But he's going to give him the $5 one and keep the expensive one.
Well, I don't know which one he's going to give him, but you know, he's earned the right to keep the one he wants.
But see, and you're defining to me art, because that piece that he got in the children's tent touched him to such an extent that he wanted to find you at the show and buy a piece at full price.
Exactly.
And that is absolutely exquisitely beautiful. That's what
It
art
is. I agree.
Well,
I got a kick out of it.
in Oklahoma City, the first year I did it, you know, I donated stuff, and you know, I had a lady. Barry, don't they do something in Oklahoma City where they like make a big deal? They don't open it the first day, or they make a big deal of when they open that tent. There's kind of a line.
I don't know.
I don't remember. Anyway, I had a lady, and I think it was a little boy. He wanted to come meet me, so I went out. We had to do a photo of me and him, and the photo of mine that he bought.
Love it.
Hey, I always talk to the kids. They're great. If they're into it, you know, if they're into the artwork, I always talk to them and encourage them.
Yeah. And I think
after I tell them they should get all A's and go to med school.
Well, I think they've demonstrated that when they've gone to the children's tent, and especially one like at Oklahoma City, and the breadth of artwork that's in there that people have given them to sell, they choose your piece and they come back to find you. That's just such a beautiful compliment, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, something Mayfest used to do that they don't do anymore. Mayfest in Tulsa, if you were an artist and you had pieces under $200, they would give you a sign to hang.
Ah, that's a great idea.
You know, talking about that, I was talking to the director from Frittenhouse for the Fine Arts Show, and they got a rule that they're not allowed to sell anything below $150 in that show.
What?
I like that.
All you're selling is a fine art show, paintings mostly, or expensive artwork. I don't see a painter selling stuff for less than $150 because they cannot have reproductions later.
Well, isn't there a show in Denver now that sent out an email a few weeks ago that said they've raised it's low priced artwork, but they raised it to the ceiling to $200. So all your artwork has to be under $200, but it's an art
Yeah.
show, a whole art show, right?
Yes.
There's 2 or 3 like that.
Are there really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Private artists is one. And I don't know. I don't think they're going to do that anymore.
Carving artists is going on.
It's
There's
like-
another one called, there's
Going.
one somewhere called Affordable Art.
Yeah, I think that's it. Affordable art.
Yeah, that's one in Denver.
Yeah.
I have
So-
friends who do it and do really well.
So,
Yeah.
But there was some painters thinking that's a good idea. So, so just saying.
Good for some.
I hate the idea. I hate the idea. I know ACC had they had these cards that you could put in your booth for those who qualify, work under 100. I don't like the idea of price being the focus. And I know there's such a range of prices, and I don't know, it just puts the focus in a different place. And I get it, they're trying to get more people to a show, or but I don't know.
I like it.
I've seen
Sorry.
too many people walk out of my booth because of sticker shock.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that, but that's why there was another artist was explaining to me the idea is that they don't want somebody selling stuff for $25. 4 booths of 25, 25, 25, 25, right? And then they come to a booth that's the cheapest thing is $100. Because then they start thinking that person's too expensive. They don't thinking that the quality of the work deserves the extra $75. So that's the concept that they're going for. Like you don't want to be going around it's a mental thing. Everybody was buying cheap, and then you're expensive, then cheap, expensive. Because then that person that's expensive is out of place, or it's in the wrong show, like you guys will say. So.
Hey, I got a question. Maybe somebody can help me. I started out with these small pieces for $50, but that was a long time ago. 75, and I kept making them a little bigger, and now they're 20. I took a look at somebody. I went to somebody's house and they had a couple of these pieces, and my pieces now are twice as big as the ones that I had sold for 75. So it just was a natural growth, and the price is 150, 175 for those pieces. And sometimes I think, should I make? So I'm going to ask you guys: should I make a $75 piece just to have something under $100, or just forget it?
I would, because I will tell you, I am losing a lot of sales because I have pieces that are $30 to $40, and I jump up to, well, basically the stuff on the wall is $650. So I have a gap from basically $50 to $650.
Yeah, you have the same problem with me. My pre-bed is $50, and then the cheapest thing on the wall is $400.
Okay.
So
Well, what I always thought was that if I have $75 pieces, they're not going to buy the $150 pieces. If I don't have these $75 pieces, I'm going to sell the $150 pieces as my low end piece, and I might sell half.
Because I got to tell you, sometimes I go to a place and I know I can afford a $300 piece, but I can afford the $275 or the $150 with no problems. So not everybody. This is something that also was discussed and Will and Douglas podcast is that we all competing for the dollar amount that everybody comes with a budget, and if somebody spend in Court's booth $500 and they only have $100 more to spend, they might buy something for $75.
But see, I would probably say make the $75 piece, but price it at 100 or 110, so that the difference between that and the 150 isn't that great. And a lot of people will probably go, well, he's got one here for 110, but look at the bigger one and it's only $50 more.
Yeah, but then you're cutting out people that only have $75 to
Yeah,
spend.
yeah. It's a
Yeah.
price point.
No, but see, I think as photographers, we face the same thing. If we do smaller prints and sell for less, are we providing a place for people to go that may go and buy the lowest price piece we have, but now we're going to give them a smaller piece, and how many people are going to go buy the smaller pieces rather than just say, well, we can't sell to everybody. And part of the question I would ask Barry too, do you have room to carry a whole bunch of $75 pieces in your vehicle to the shows, and do you have space that you want to give up selling the higher price pieces to show small pieces?
To answer
Good
your question,
question.
If
on
I
the
didn't
first-
have,
on the first part of that question, yes, I have the room to bring them. On the second part, no, I don't really have the room to put out the $75 pieces. At least I don't think so.
Because you'd be giving up space that you give for
Yeah.
higher price pieces.
you don't have to set up, I mean, you don't have to set one or two out.
I think it's fine if you have nothing under $100. I mean, I worked
Yeah.
really hard on coming up, like in 2016 it was, and my least expensive thing is about $280. And I tried, I can't make something for $50 in the realm of what I do. And so,
But Allison, you're doing jewelry, and that's expected.
no, but there's jewelry, there's very nice jewelry that you could buy for $50 and $75.
Yeah.
It may just be less labor, and that's okay, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, I'm going to tell you, if I go to an art show and I find a jeweler for $50, I would think this buy and sell.
No.
There's
It
that.
depends on what it is. I mean,
Well, it's not going to be.
The $400 and $500 pieces could be buy sell also.
Yeah, but
that's right.
it's
Oh,
not that.
you know what?
I-
$5,000 pieces could be buy sell, or you
That's
could.
right.
I mean, I could show you jewelry catalogs that you could order finished jewelry.
That's right.
I don't
So-
argue that with you, but I'm saying to you, the perception of the people, if you go to an art show to pick up something, it's going to be anything for $50, it's going to be beads, low-end jewelry. It's not going to be anything extremely fine art, like a expensive. It's going to be something that you can go to a kiosk and just get it from there. And when I go to an art show, what I'm looking is for something unique. I don't want something that I can go anywhere and get it.
But see, and I think one of the first tier of pricing and valuing what we do is us. And that's represented by the pricing that we have. And I think when we try to go farther and farther down the scale instead of up the scale, we're starting to go in the wrong direction. We're starting to go in the realm of hobbyists and part-timers. And I think we start devaluing the higher price pieces we have. If people walk in the booth and they saw Barry's $150 piece and they go like, wow, I love that, and that's the smallest piece that he has, I think they're going to tend to either buy it or, if they walk out, they walk out. That's it.
Well, yeah, that's all fine and dandy until I gotta have gas money to get my fucking ass home. Sorry for the language, folks, but last weekend, do you know how many pieces I sold that were bigger than 8x10?
Nope.
None. I have had shows where I sell nothing but my 8x10, I call them desktop prints.
Yeah.
I've had shows where I've sold nothing but those, and I made my booth feedback. I made enough to cover my expenses. I mean, obviously, I would love to have made more money, but it would have, if I had not had those prints, would I have made that amount of sales in large prints? Probably not, because the people that bought from me obviously were people that probably could not afford to spend $300, $400, $500 right now. The cheapest thing in my booth that's not one of those $30 or $40 prints is $450. And there were a lot of people that bought those $30 and $40 prints that could not have afforded to spend $450.
Would you go back to that show?
No, I won't go back to that show.
You won't.
That's right.
That was Prairie Village.
Yeah.
It was super hot, Corey. I got two friends that was in that show, and they said that they would not go back because the weather was so bad.
Right.
And then there was
Okay.
nobody there the show was not well attended, and it looks more like Donna is not running the show anymore, from what I understand, and it showed that it was not run by her anymore.
Okay, so let me talk about the show. Let me talk about Prairie Village specifically. I used to live in Kansas City. I have a place to stay for free. My sales in Kansas City, other than the Prairie Village show, when I've done Brookside or Plaza, have always been decent or good, decent to good. I have not been able to get into Plaza or Brookside for probably, I've not done a show in Kansas City because I couldn't get into Plaza or Brookside for quite some time.
Yeah, me too.
Had I known that I was going to get into Plaza this year, I probably would not have done Prairie Village. I got into Prairie Village because there are no other shows I can do in Kansas City. If you're an out-of-town artist, you can do Plaza, Brookside, or Prairie Village.
Unless you're me.
There's the Westport Art Show, but that is local artists only. So I said, okay, I'm going to go do this show. I know I'm probably not going to make much money, but I'm going to get my foot back in Kansas City. And I can guarantee you that if I get a decent booth at the Plaza, meaning one that's not on
For the music.
Drunk Row, I will have at least one purchase from the Prairie Village show from people that came and saw me at Prairie Village and thought, oh, you know, I'm gonna, you know,
You're
I'll
gonna
see
be
you at
here
Plaza.
next week.
Yeah. So I knew I wasn't going to do sales. You know, I knew I wasn't going to do any mini sales, but you know, I still needed to make an appearance in Kansas City. So will I do it again next year? No. Will I do it again 3 or 4 years from now? You know, I'll consider it. It's just like Autumn and Art in Wichita. You know, it's a local show for me. Easy. I do it every 3 or 4 years. You know, I had a decent show at Mayfest, but I haven't done it for a few years. Will I do Mayfest next year? Probably not. You know, I'll wait 2 or 3 years and do it again. So yeah, I knew what I was getting into. With Prairie Village, I had really low expectations. I met my lowest expectation. I was happy. My wife had a really good, somebody came in and bought 6 of my little pieces. So, you know, I didn't lose any money. I had a free place to stay. I got to see some friends that I hadn't seen for a while. And, you know, I had some longtime friends come into my booth on Saturday. So, yeah. And I picked up some people, you know, probably half a dozen people on my mailing list that are really interested in my work. Talked to a couple photographers who are interested in black and white classes, you know, so yeah, it was worth doing. Not every year.
Sometimes shows can be advertising for us.
Yeah.
And if you were to buy an ad, a one-time ad, it wouldn't have as much effect as, you know, being at a show.
And you know, I did not talk to anybody, any artist this weekend that said they had a good show.
Yeah.
The heat was a killer. You know, heat was a killer at Brookside. I'm just hoping that, you know, Brookside and this weekend aren't, you know, kind of a forecast for what I could expect at the Plaza. And if I get put on Drunk Row at the Plaza, I'll tell them to keep my money, my booth fee.
Whoa.
I won't do it.
That sounds ominous.
I think that's
The Plaza is laid out on 2 streets for artists. One is Brush Creek, and Brush Creek is where the main stage is. And I was 4 or 5 booths away from the stage, facing the stage, facing Brush Creek.
what I don't understand, everyone complains about the music at Plaza. Cherry Creek has music, but it's separate, and you know that they can't figure out a way to lay out the show so the music is separate. You know, is really
So
Yes.
it was such a horrible experience for me.
Yeah.
I have hearing issues, and to listen to that music pounding in my ears, and
oh, it's
I talked-
awful.
I talked
You
to
can't
another
do
artist.
business.
I talked to another artist this weekend who has a different kind of art. He lives in Kansas City. He says, well, I'm not doing the plaza, but I'll be at the plaza. And he said, because the people that run the plaza know me, they know I'm local. So when somebody doesn't show up the last minute, they'll call me, and they know that I don't care where they put me.
Mhm.
So he said, I will be there somewhere.
The point
And-
is that enough people complain about the music that you know, they really need to work on the layout, but you know, clearly they're not.
And again, the show promoter just has to go stand out in front of the stage where the booths are, and they should be able to hear it themselves and go, oh, is this good to be able to talk with patrons that want to consider buying from any of the artists
what?
here?
It's the plaza. It has a 50-year
care about
history of arrogance.
Well,
they care
I
about
don't-
that.
I don't apply because I can't sell my work if people can't hear me. As I said before, jewelry is very intimate, and you know,
Right. And so is my work. I have to talk to people about my work.
Me too.
And
Right.
that's why I said if they put me on drunk row again, I won't go. It's not worth my time and effort to go fight with that.
Yeah, and
Even though
Larry knows that too from Three Rivers. There, one of the big field had the stage on it, and if you were anywhere in half of that field where the music was, you were dead meat. You couldn't talk to people in your booth. And that's
Yeah, but
it's
yet
very
a lot of
It's
it's very
artists-
unfair.
A lot of
Here's the
artists
interesting
love
thing I
being
found
in the
out
market.
the Plaza this year. Plaza
Uh-huh.
has a new director this year,
Oh,
an event person that knows absolutely nothing about doing art shows.
Yeah.
uh-huh.
good luck.
Right.
I mean, you know, I'm a believer, like any show should have no bad booth, and the music and the food needs to be segregated from the artists
Oh, there were
because
Yeah.
yeah,
at this show there were 3 artists that were directly across from the food booths, and you couldn't get to their booth for the lines for the food.
No, I hate
right.
that.
So you have to keep the food separate too.
That's right.
I mean,
So
you know,
as
everyone
artists-
pays a booth fee, you know, so all booths should equally be
Equal.
good.
Exactly.
And
Hey, I didn't even know there. I've done Cherry Creek 3 times. I didn't even know there was music at Cherry Creek.
Right.
That's
Yes.
how unobtrusive it was.
Yeah, music, and then there's a whole street with food. So, you know, it's separate, and it's like, and it's not at the end of the show either. It's in the middle of the show, but on its own street. So you
Yeah.
either way you go, you could still go to art booths.
Yeah.
and then the show, Prairie Village, there's kind of a couple of offshoots, and instead of making, they crammed booth in every possible place.
Yeah.
So instead of being able to access these offshoots, you know, where I was, you know, they could have taken 2 booths out and made it very accessible to where I was. They packed in booths. There were a lot. There were almost every corner booth was tucked back in an area with a curb that came out to the edge of the booth, either in the front or the back. So it really wasn't open, the whole open. You couldn't walk the whole width of the booth that was open, the side that was open.
Ooh.
I also told if you have a corner, there was a space, they will put a sponsor in front of the space.
Oh,
So it was not like they basically my friends told me, do not do that show, no even think about it. You're better off doing a crappy 57th Street than being there.
You know, if you are a local artist, and there were a lot of local artists there, if you're a local artist, yeah, you could do it. I drove 3 hours and I had a place to stay. So will I do it every year? No. will I do it in 4 or 5 years from now? Yeah, I'll consider it. And the other thing is that show in the last 4 years, it's had 4 different show directors.
Oh.
That's a problem.
Hey, I got a question. Who's the oldest artist on the show circuit?
Nels.
I know an artist.
I was
know an
thinking
artist.
of Nels.
No, actually, no, it's no Nels.
Lynn Krause.
There's a
No.
lady down in Florida.
Yeah,
and I
Lynn
think
Krause. Lynn.
There's a lady down in Florida, and I think there was some write-up on her, and she's like, what, 90 or something like that, and she's still doing art shows. And I'm like, that's impressive. Wow.
I know an artist. I know an artist who's 84 and still doing shows, but she's not really on the big circuit. She does some shows,
What's
but
the
still.
photographer that does the bodyscapes?
Alan Teeger.
Alan's still doing shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's older.
Yeah, he's in 81, 82. But I
Oh,
think the Lane is 85 or 86.
Lynn is older than that.
You know.
All right, folks, I gotta go. It's been fun this afternoon.
All
Yeah.
right. See you,
Be
Corey.
good.
Everybody later.
Later.
Oh my goodness.
You know, I looked, I'm doing Crassel, and there was a lot of people that boycotted it because of the way they treated that one artist last year.
Yes.
I looked at the people in the show, and they're great. They're better than usual. I mean, there's some really excellent, like everybody's really good. So, what happened there? I
It's like
expected
how
it to
it
be
goes,
like,
Barry. I would not, I'm sorry, I would not do a show with anybody that treat anybody like that. That didn't even before they make a blank statement or a decision without going through all the facts.
I agree, Oscar.
That's the number one. Put it in lame terms. That's what people do when it comes to race, and that's something that I cannot tolerate. I don't know nobody who is doing it. That's really, really bad, and I hate that. One thing that I will not tolerate any day from anybody. Learn what's going on, understand what's going on. After that, make a decision. You came to the same conclusion, fine, but don't start from the end to the back because that doesn't work like that.
Yep.
But if you want to do it, fine.
I can't forgive the Krasel Arts Center and their former show director for how they handled it. It was bad all the way.
Yeah.
Poorly handled.
For those of us that don't know what happened,
Oh, Chris God, the photographer with the fish?
Yeah.
In 57?
Yeah.
So the whole story is that the black kid came in and started harassing him since 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Then at 5 o'clock came back and escalated to another level. And
he wanted to take a photograph of the guy of the word.
Oh, okay. And Chris told him no?
yeah, because they have a bunch of signs if you walk through his booth.
Yeah, it's also in the prospectus that and online that in terms of etiquette, if you have a camera and you want to take photographs in somebody's booth and they told you not to, then you have to walk away. So it actually says that.
Okay, good. But keep going. So the kid came back at 5 o'clock, escalated it. and what happened?
Sorry, I'm not going to answer this.
They escalated and it got so hotter and a couple other artists got involved, tried to push the kid back. They wasn't the wrong, even they're good friends of mine. And then the end of the story, the kid put a video accusing them of being racist. and when the police got involved, the center never intervened to clear the stuff, and the lady was right in front of it and let it go. She could have stopped it at any time, and she didn't want to.
The
She,
show director was sitting right there on a bench
Wow.
watching.
yeah,
She did nothing to intervene and stop it from progressing.
And
yeah,
then statement afterwards about
Yeah.
those, like the horrible out of town artists.
So she attacked Chris Goog for his response. So you're
Yeah.
saying?
yeah.
Yeah.
But
And the
Chris,
kid he told a lie. He did not use the N-word.
yeah,
Right.
Wow.
and then they raised it.
There's a video of it on YouTube. You can see that he.
Then he did a fundraising for the kid. The art center did a fundraiser for the kid to appease the situation between both towns. So,
So they banned him this year then from
oh,
attending?
he's banned permanently. Him,
Him and
Wendy, and Mark Saki are banned from the show.
Wow.
of
Wow.
course none of them want to go back, regardless.
Well,
I want to put a foot in there myself because I don't want to. You know, my fear is what's going to stop anybody to come this year and do it again.
I know.
it's probably going to happen.
Yeah. Because they
It's-
just empowered the people to break the rules that the show put in place. And the artist can't technically stop them. Is that correct?
It is the height of
Correct,
hypocrisy.
but legally, this is the part that everybody need to understand. If legally, the cop was right. If the person is not inside your booth, you cannot prevent them. You cannot take pictures. If as soon as they step outside of your booth, it's a common space where anybody can see it and anybody can take pictures or whatever you want to. No court in the world is going to
Except they had it in writing.
that doesn't matter.
Hey, the kid had press credentials.
What?
And the kid had press credentials. He
didn't
was supposed to be representing the show, but he didn't have credentials on him.
No, he didn't show the
No credential.
Right,
credentials.
but he was supposed to have had credentials.
No, he was not representing the show.
After the fact.
He wrote for one of those free papers in Benton Harbor. He did not have credentials. He did not have permission from the show.
And he didn't have permission from the artist to take the picture.
I just let you know because that was another there was another case like that, and they don't do the show anymore. Deep Alum. They were the same situation, similar to that, and that's what happened over there. And I'm telling you, the court dropped the case because the only advantage then this time was that the artist was videotaping the person, and the judge saw the video and told the lady, "No, you're going to have to pay the court fees and everything that you owe to this guy now because of that." But as soon as the person is outside your 10 by 10 space, you cannot prevent the person from photographing your booth. So
But what's so weird about, and that may be the case, but what's so weird about that is if, say, you have pieces hanging on the front of your booth and they're stepping outside of your booth and they're taking the picture of your work the same as they would if they were standing 2 feet more inside of your booth, that's insane because then basically you can't stop people from taking pictures of your work.
just think about it this way: when you go to photograph something, we can photograph anything that we want from the street, right?
Well, yeah, like movie star. Think about like paparazzi. If you are not on a movie star's property and you see them, you actually, and let's say they're outside gardening, you're allowed to take pictures of them.
Fair game.
It's fair game. So you have to keep that
And,
in
you know,
mind.
and unless you're stalking them, which is a whole different story.
So that's just to let you know. That's how it's supposed to work.
Hey, Barry,
Yeah.
When you're done, you should clean the clay dust off your lens.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm laughing because I would have noticed that.
Well, Barry, I hope you have an excellent show. And I hope that the art center itself doesn't make any money this year.
Hey, Bonnie, I hope you don't hold it against me that I'm going there because I'm pretty, I'm pretty moral. I mean, I can see not doing it, but then I have to blame Cherry Creek and Des Moines and all those shows that I got rejected in May and June. And this is the first show since April that I can get into. So it's their fault that I'm going.
Well, and there's a part of it too, I think
Don't,
that,
don't worry, Bonnie. He will not come out of the hotel from Ann Arbor alive.
I think part of the art shows, it's our relationship with the art buyers too. It's in the show directors, while they do have it's their rules and their show, we have to be careful about penalizing ourselves because we don't necessarily agree with what the show promoters are doing, right? Because you're
Yeah.
selling to the public.
That's not.
That's the way I saw that's in these days anybody can be carrying a gun. What happened if the kid or somebody pull up a gun and shoot you in the middle of the
Right. That's
That's
huge
insane.
now.
I think Krasl, hopefully the learning curve for Krasl on this
Oh.
would be that they need to write their rule more clearly and make sure that it makes sense. So tell artists, stop people from taking pictures in your booth, but from outside of your booth, you can't stop them.
Well, but that's
Okay,
common
that's something.
knowledge.
What?
That's common knowledge.
Not
Well,
going
then
to
they didn't need to
Chris.
write the rule to begin with, but they
No, it
did.
doesn't. The rules don't matter. It's not a pay admission show.
Yes, it is.
It
Oh,
is
is it?
now.
It's
Yeah,
paid.
But it's still,
I just noticed that.
is this going to be the first year that it's pay admission?
No,
Third year.
Oh, okay.
Third year.
Really?
But I mean, if you're in a public space, you can photograph anything you want.
And the thing, technically speaking, even you pay to get in, they cannot block the entrance to the beach. So you still get people from the beach walking in there. So
Right.
even you, and
But the thing about taking pictures in a public space, if it's your copyrighted material, they cannot use the image for profit.
yeah, that's the only thing.
If they get caught.
right.
Well,
So is this-
can a
is this an
newspaper,
issue-
if you took that, if you worked for a paper and you took it in and they published it in the paper without the permission of the
That's
artist,
different. Editorial use is legal.
So what about, and I wonder if this happens, given the quality of printers these days, some, person at a show, whatever, they're an accountant or and they take a photograph of your work. Let's say it's a painting, a 2D something. And then they print it out and make a pillow out of it for their couch, for their own personal use. Well,
Yeah.
as an artist, you certainly don't want that.
The
But,
company that's making the pillow should be asking if they have permission to use the picture.
yeah.
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 The thing is, I could send in an image to Vistaprint or whatever and have it printed on anything. So how do they know it's an original?
With an artist getting images of their own artwork printed, it's implied. I mean, I photograph stuff all the time for artists, but they have blanket permission to use the images for whatever they want. But
Right, but I'm talking
their
about
artwork.
a customer at a show who,
Sam's Club and Walmart and Costco's, when they had their printers in-house in the stores, they were required to ask for a copyright release.
oh, that's very interesting. But what about then like Vistaprint or any of these printing companies who print other things besides postcards?
Well, but
They're supposed to.
they're probably assuming that it's your own artwork they're making they're printing the picture.
Uh-huh.
And their ability to track down who actually owns the images would be almost impossible. Plus, it would make the work, they'd have to charge the customers for all that work in the investigation, and that would just push the prices up. So I just don't think it's possible. Like Larry says, I think there's an assumption that what you're giving them to print, you have permission to print it.
Right. Because you could send images to Spoonflower and then have fabric printed. And I've never done it before, so I don't know, but there seems to be a lot of ways that just, Joe Schmo can make something from your artwork without there's the ignorance of people don't seem to understand copyright law.
Yeah, there's companies like Fine Art America where you can actually go on and you can have people's images printed on all kinds of objects.
But
but
those artists are getting a royalty.
Yeah, minor, but we're getting
not
one.
on Vistaprint.
We're giving
No,
permission.
on Fine Art America.
Yeah.
Right. Or there's Redbubble. That's another one where the artists get some sort of cut.
Yeah, I'm afraid to go for my sports pictures there.
Yeah, you could get like an iPhone cover there or whatever, but no, it's and the thing is, if they're using it for personal use, it's still not right because you're not getting a cut of your artwork.
Well, I think what Larry said, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Larry, is that if the person doing the printing is supposed to be assured that you have permission to use that image, so that's really their responsibility before they print it for you on whatever they're going to print it on, is that you have to use that image if it's not yours. But they may assume that, well, this image is probably hers. Well,
I mean, I get requests all the time. People want to get stuff printed with Dr. J's picture on it. And I said to them, I have no problem licensing it to you, but you get yourself a signed release from Dr. J to use his likeness.
Yeah.
And that ends it right there.
Right. So when I get my banners printed, there's the assumption that the images are mine, that I own the images.
Right.
But there's really no process in place to, I don't have to sign a form saying, yes, they're my images.
Well, Katie just posted a thing that said in the chat, you might want to read that too. Thank you.
Oh, okay. I'll look.
That was at Dragon Con a couple of years ago. There was a cosplay group that had the fabric made up and printed from an image they took of the rug to make themselves, I don't know, something like invisibility costumes or something, camouflage costumes, and their cosplay thing was crawling across that hotel rug. And they blended right in because the fabric matched the rug.
But they got a cease and desist order for not having permission to use it, right? Hotel
Right.
rug.
Spoonflower couldn't print up any, the cosplayers got away with it as a one-off thing for, their performance, but they, everybody else was going, oh, wow, that's wonderful. Where'd you get it?
That's very interesting. And
that was in Atlanta, Georgia. I don't know the name of the hotel, but it was their design rug. So.
Yeah, thanks for putting that out there because that helps us kind of understand some of the landscape that we're dealing with.
Right.
Issue.
So I wonder if Spoonflower now has something in place to, protect themselves.
Well, there's probably a checkbox.
No, it was
if you have permission to use this image, check this box, and they won't. And it can't go any further until the box is checked.
And if you check the box and you don't have permission, then it's not their responsibility. It's your
responsibility. Right. That makes sense.
Which is good because I think all of us kind of don't want to see our images being used without us having the option to give permission, yes or no, and
Or get a royalty,
charge. Yeah, exactly.
a licensing
Like a
fee.
stock purchase, stock agency.
or like Pinterest. I've never been on Pinterest. Like I don't have an account there, but I mean, my work has been seen on Pinterest,
Me too.
and often I'm cited. So, you know,
Yeah, and
Yeah.
what was that big case in the news just in the last week or so with the two famous people about a copyright infringement?
Don't know.
You talking about AI?
No, there were two.
Well,
Somebody,
Donald Trump accused Ron DeSantis of infringing on his copyright of Reagan
I love it.
that actually Reagan had used first or something, and like 500 other people have used it since.
But he has no problem in stealing music.
No, he's using it.
well, you know, for him, you know, legal issues or, you know, his
He doesn't pay lawyers anyway.
right, exactly. I mean, didn't Melania Dump steal Michelle Obama's
Well, her
inaugural
speechwriter did. I don't think she personally had anything to do with other than reading it.
Right. Well, that's a good point.
Yeah, but it was almost word for word.
Right. Why pay a speechwriter when, you know? Anyway, I do
just got
think
lazy.
that I do think because we have so much information accessible to us that people don't understand about copyright. So I was listening to a podcast the other day from David Leibovitz, who's a pastry chef and lives in Paris, and he said that you know he's found that people have taken his recipes. He said anyone who you know cooks or bakes or whatever who's a professional, they may get influence from other people's recipes, and but he said, you know, you can't just take somebody's recipe, print it on your own blog, and pass it off on your own. Except, you know, it's impossible to control it.
can you
So-
copyright a recipe? I didn't know you could do that.
No, you
Copyright.
Well, the thing is, if it's written in your own voice, like his recipes have like stories to them and all of that, and all of that was copied and pasted. So, you know, it wasn't just the recipe itself.
It's like
And that's
McDonald's secret sauce.
Well, the case I was talking about was Andy Warhol and Prince,
Yeah, right. I
Oh.
saw that.
Oh,
and they cited against the Supreme Court decided against Andy Warhol, which was interesting. That was good.
Okay, guys, I have to go.
All right, nice seeing you, Bonnie.
Nice seeing you.
Bonnie.
nice seeing you, Bonnie.
Hope the
Me-
laundry all came out well.
What, laundry?
Still work. Thanks, guys. See you next
Bye.
week.
Bye, Bonnie.
Hey, funny thing about that ruling, which I kind of disagreed with the ruling. I think it should have been okay to use, but it was you had both left people, the Supreme Court justice on the left and on the right voting against or for it, and there was only one person on the new one, Jackson, who adamantly voted.
Was one of the two
Against,
votes dissenting?
huh?
Was one of the
ruling.
two dissenting votes?
And she was the only one that would write the dissenting vote. She was the
Yeah.
only one.
Yeah, because it was a 7-2 case, so she was one of those two that said.
I thought it was 8-1.
So wait, what was the case? What was the case? And who? I mean, they're both no longer alive, but it's their states. Is that it?
It was, if I understood correctly, it was somebody had taken a picture, I think, of Prince, and Andy Warhol used the image for something, and he was accused of copyright infringement and went to the courts. And the courts
Campbell's
apparently
soup.
were continuing to agree that Andy Warhol was not correct, and then went to Supreme Court, and Supreme Court 7-2, I think, said, yeah, Andy Warhol was in the wrong on that. There was copyright infringement.
What was it? Campbell's Soup Company?
Oh, no.
No.
Yeah, that's one of the bigger ones I've seen, but I think my experience, most of what I've seen in the courts is the courts are pretty good, really consistent at upholding copyright, which is good. Because there are a lot of people that will violate copyright infringement if they get the chance, and it's makes them money.
And there's a lot of ignorance on it as well.
Yes.
Agreed.
You know, there's one person doing actually the copies the work from different DC and Marvel, and then put it like a piece of artwork. It's not even designing this. It looks like I said copy and paste and make a representation of that. And I keep going like, you know, you pray to God that Disney doesn't, or DC don't get a hold of you, because they're not gonna have a field there with you.
Yeah. Disney's the one company that is diligent about going after somebody using their images.
Oh, are they? Good.
They have to.
Yeah. And Marvel is part of Disney, so.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
I mean, if they let one person get away with it, then it opens the door.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not a door you ever want to have open.
Did anybody ever do the Masters show in November at Disney Marketplace?
Nope.
Never heard of it.
Yeah,
I wasn't that good, Barry.
I heard of it, but no.
I did it a bunch of times. It was a great show. And they gave you, well, it wasn't that great, but it was like a vacation. To me, it was like a vacation in November, to go to Florida in November for a vacation. And they gave you tickets to everything, so you could go to Epcot and Disney, all these places there.
The Magic Kingdom.
Disney. But you know, there were artists that thought, oh, Disney, I'm going to do a Mickey Mouse thing, and the lawyers would come around and say, you can't have that, you can't show that, you can't sell that.
So they don't have the show anymore?
No.
Of course, you know, Mickey Mouse was stolen. That was Steamboat Willie. So, but Steamboat Willie was never copyrighted.
What I like is that you know, there's some censorship issues here about certain things, and about this graphic novelist who won a Pulitzer Prize. It's his latest graphic novel is being banned in schools. It has to do with Nazis and stuff like that.
Oh, Mouse, is that what you mean? That book?
Mouse, yes, Mouse.
Yeah.
And then he brought up, I watched it, they were interviewing, he brought up the thing that, hey, what about you know, Disney and Steamboat Willie? First of all, that was very racist, and it was also sexual, you know, sexually inappropriate. A lot of the things they did, you know, and how he treated Minnie and stuff like that. And nobody said anything about it, you know, about that ever.
Right.
Guess it depends on who it is that's doing
but Steamboat Willie apparently wasn't copyrighted, and that's how they got away with it. And
I didn't think that you would have to. Isn't the copyright attached as soon as you create it?
Well, I don't know about the time that it happened. I mean,
the latest copyright laws were created when I was in college, so that would be like mid '60s.
Oh, okay. So that was after.
Yeah, that was in the '20s or '30s.
Ron, I got a question for you.
Yeah, but Steamboat Willie was Walt Disney.
Yeah, right.
For Tablet Street, you think I can stay in the band, or should I get an hotel?
For what now?
Tablet Street.
Talbot Street. I'd stay in your van. It's a quiet neighborhood. I don't think there's really any issues there at all. I think you'd be some of the side streets would be pretty nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Barry, you're getting harder to see.
What?
Yeah.
What happened?
I blend in with the gray wall. What can I say?
Right.
Yeah, he's looking more and more like
In the
Casper the
fog.
Ghost.
In the fog.
Is anybody watching me trim my pots?
Yeah, but we can't really see what you're doing.
Oh well.
Well,
So is
everybody,
it
thank
is it summer? Is it summer out there, by the way?
Supposed
Oh,
to be.
where?
Is it hot out there in the country?
Where I live, it's in the 60s today,
Oh, okay.
but
Yeah.
it's sunny.
Mhm.
But hey, downstate Michigan, they have it's hot and dry.
You getting that air quality issue out of Canada from the fires?
No,
Good.
not that I know of.
Isn't
I'm
it
I've heard that-
further west?
I've heard that St. Louis is really bad air quality wise, but I think it's from ozone, not the fires. That's what someone told
Look
me.
at all the dust in your picture there, Allison. It looks like you got some air quality issues.
I have air quality issues in here too.
What? But I'm inside my studio.
Yeah, me too.
No, we don't have air quality issues here in Santa Fe. I mean, the air is pretty clean,
I think they'll
and
give
it's
you-
been raining. It's been raining every day, which is a miracle. So, Oscar, how's the weather in Chicago?
I got my windows open.
Oh, so it's nice then.
Yeah, this last weekend at 57th Street, I mean, it was sad that the show was so bad because the weather was so beautiful. It was just
Oh,
gorgeous. It's like in the 70s and
Yeah,
no wind and no rain and no humidity. It was
nice.
great. Yeah.
it was
Perfect
snowing
sun.
cottonwoods.
The one now?
It was snowing cottonwoods.
Yeah, it was snowing Cottonwood, and only in the half of the block that I was
Snow?
on. Jesus.
Snow in Cottonwood in Texas? Hilarious.
No.
I'll have to give maybe if Larry doesn't mind, I'll send a picture this next week so that he could post it that you could see what Cottonwood snowing on the ground looks like. It was unbelievable. It was just half that block. Oscar was like a quarter of a block off of that street, and there was nothing. And the upper half of the block, there was nothing. And then where we were, it was just this constant snowing balls and mats of cottonwood seeds laying all over everything. And you get there in the morning and you sweep your booth out, and then within an hour it was all clogged up again, and you're packing up your stuff and all these seeds are in it. It's just like unbelievable.
That
Yeah,
doesn't sound like fun.
No, it wasn't
I
fun.
just- Well, I just got a text from my sister, and she's in New Jersey, and she sent a picture of the sky, and it definitely looks like a California fiery thing. This is Montclair, New Jersey,
Wow.
and so there's fires in Nova Scotia. So, but that's new for a lot of the country. That kind of and the air could be, just so bad. I mean, you can't even just take a walk because it's not safe. The air quality that looks really bad. So we're lucky here in the Southwest as far as the weather this year so far. But I mean, they've been getting rain up in Colorado, and we've been getting rain, and so it's pretty green for a change.
I talked to a potter this morning that won't fire their kilns because they're killed because of the fire hazard downstate Michigan, and the governor has banned open fires because
Well,
of
that's a good idea.
risk.
So it's like all over like California now.
Well, Larry, I just sent you two pictures that I took at the show of the what you
Email?
call it. Emailed, yeah. See if they come through that you could show people what. They come through?
Yeah,
Yeah. It's
I
just,
have to save them and then find them.
oh my God. So where's everybody going to be this week?
You're gonna
Chicago,
what?
Chicago. I'm
Oh,
doing
you are
Old
with
Town.
Old Town? And Oscar, you're gonna be at Talbot Street, you said? Yeah. And Barry, where are you gonna be?
Home.
Home. Good.
Nobody likes me. I can't get into anything anymore. Although I have new images from courtesy of Larry. So if that works, you know, I'm going to be his biggest fan. They look better, you know, they look better than the ones I had. So.
So what do you think's happening with the juries? Whoa.
Here you go.
Lazy show directors that don't
This is-
want to they don't want to go out and hire somebody competent. They just want their next door neighbor to do the jury.
Ron, you
What
see
do we?
the
Oh, there's the
pictures?
Thanks,
snow.
Larry.
I see.
Yeah.
Wow.
Of course,
Yeah.
I'm extremely cynical about it, so don't quote me.
I mean, have you guys ever seen seed things like that before?
Yeah, I have some pictures
Uh,
over the years.
That's not. Wait, that's not snow. That's cottonwood.
that's cottonwood seed. Wow. I know. It's like in all my years as a biologist, I never saw cottonwoods go to seed like that before. And it was just like snowing all day long, nonstop. And that's what it kind of came out looking like. It was pretty weird. And inside your tent, it would look pretty much the same because it would just blow in on the lightest breeze and it would just be like floating around. And it was amazing. Thank you,
Well,
Larry.
the city is called Cottonwood.
There is down in Texas, yeah.
Well, I should probably go, and I leave in a couple days. So
Well, have a good show.
thank you.
Yeah.
I'm doing lakefront, so that'll be interesting. The return of that, anyway.
The Return of Lakefront. Is that
Yeah.
Lakefront 2, the sequel?
No, it's lakefront back again from its dormancy. So I don't think it's a sequel.
I hope that the show held up. We'll find out.
We'll see. All the artists are outside. There's no tent, and it's a smaller show, so
Well, tell us good stories, or even if you have to lie. So
I'll tell the truth. So, all right, bye everyone.
All right.
Yeah.
Bye, Al.
Larry, thanks for holding this again.
Sure. Barry, don't forget to clean your lens.
I'm gonna make it more hazy.
Yeah. But remember,
It has a
do those $75 pots for 110 and then see how that works.
I'm not doing that.
All
Okay,
right.
here's my point. Wait a minute, don't get off yet. Here's my point. It takes the same amount of time to make a $75 piece as a $150 piece, and you could say the same thing about a $300 piece. So
Yeah.
why even do the $75 pieces?
No, I agree.
Because they'll sell faster. If they sell faster.
Otherwise,
have
you spend all that, and if they didn't, then he's got all this product sitting around that's not going to sell, and it's be like, and he can't put them in the children's booth because they're too expensive. So
Now, you
That's
can
right.
sell them for $5 at Oklahoma City next
Then
year.
I gotta schlep. Then I gotta put them back
Yeah.
in the boxes. And,
yeah, unless you go do that show in Denver for nothing, everything under $200, and then you could boost the price from 75 up to 150.
Hey,
Yeah.
Oklahoma City, I used to use the kids' tent to liquidate my teddy bear pictures I was no longer selling.
There you go. Worked great,
Yeah.
didn't it?
Yeah,
With
Teddy
pop-
bears and kids.
I used to
Yeah.
make $2,000 just from the kids' tent
Man, that's great.
at $5 a pop.
Amazing.
It's a lot. And you made a lot of kids happy, which was
And then they take the 20% commission, so I was only making $4 a picture.
but
Well,
were
you
making
photographers.
60 yeah. And you still made 1,600, so that was good. Okay,
All
guys, live long and
All right.
prosper.
I'll
Bye,
see you
guys.
guys.